Hi, thanks for joining us on Inside Curtin. I'm Michelle. In this episode, we learn more about the Indigenous Cultural Awareness Training on offer at Curtin. Meet the student making a documentary on a member of the Hockeyroos as he heads to the Rio Olympics. Still on hockey, we find out about the interesting study our students and academics have been undertaking to prevent a particular sports injury. And hear thoughts on the future from ProVost John Cordery. A knowledge of our local Indigenous culture and heritage is valuable to have and can be useful in many careers, which is why we have a number of different ways to learn about this rich history for both students and staff.
The Indigenous Cultural Capabilities Framework, which Curtin University has developed for staff and students, there's 3 stages. The first stage is sort of like a beginning level where the staff have the opportunity to do the long-running program operated out of CAS, the Centre for Aboriginal Studies, which is our ways of working, and they get a real good introduction around Aboriginal society and culture. And that's you can do 3 different levels of that under its new structure. Stage 2 is a more cultural development stage where there's the opportunity for staff to participate with me with on-country cultural immersion visits in and near the metropolitan area. Stage 3 takes it a step further where you can do a 3 to 4 day cultural immersion visit in places like Wooloona or now and up down in the southwest. I suppose in a university context it's for particularly academic staff. It's about how they might use Aboriginal aspects, Aboriginal culture, Aboriginal principles in their curriculum, whatever it might be. All staff at Curtin University, through the Reconciliation Action Plan, have a responsibility to know and understand and be aware of Aboriginal culture, and that's what we're trying to do. The framework is directed to staff, but there's also a component for students, and that's about on-country visits that I do for students a week at a time each semester. Taking people on country is getting people out of the classroom. I mean, you can teach Aboriginal studies in the classroom, but the best way to teach Aboriginal studies is to take people out on country and introduce them to the land and a concept I call Budyanne. And Budyanne is about listening to the land. And Noongar people, Aboriginal people do it all the time. When we're out on country, we listen to the land. It's not only using your ears and listening to the land, but it's feeling, touching, smelling, seeing and hearing the land and the natural environment and the things around you, whether they're animals, birds, insects and things like that. So you're actually right there in the landscape and you feel part of country and being there rather than being in a sort of decontextualised place in a classroom.
You can find out more about the courses on offer at the Centre of Aboriginal Studies. As we've mentioned before, thanks to our partnership with Hockey Australia, our students are getting involved at many different levels. One of those is the making of some documentary films on the players as they follow the road to Rio.
I'm a student here at Curtin University. I do screen art as a major and performance art as a minor. The reason why I got involved with Hockey Australia was because they joined Curtin University and offered an opportunity for students to interview and do stories on their teammates that are going to Rio.
I made the national squad in 2003, a year earlier, but I broke my ankle twice. Probably thought my dream of the Olympics was over.
We've been following the story of the Olympic champion Mark Knowles. We have 2 stories to tell, and one is a family story and one is actually to sort of get people excited to watch the Olympics. I got to meet Mark and his family. They let us into their home, let us go and watch them, train and practice really hard. I really learned very rapidly as a screen art student to be far more prepared. I think that was one thing. We got the opportunity and we kind of ran for it rather than just sort of sit down and nut it out a little bit better. And I think when you're dealing with that sort of situation, you actually learn at a much faster rate and a rapid rate versus just in class experiences. Without a doubt, I had the biggest learning curve through this process. I feel extremely grateful for the opportunity to work with Hockey Australia. They have been incredibly generous with their time and their effort that they've given us to sort of help teach us what's required for a world audience. Hockey Australia has, within the first 3 weeks of being released, went to nearly 30,000 people worldwide. At this stage, I'm not exactly sure where we're at now, but that audience, for a student to get that kind of audience, is just an amazing opportunity. It's one that you can't underestimate the impact of being able to produce some work for a company versus just our student work.
So I went to university in New Zealand. I went to the University of Otago for my undergraduate degree, right down the bottom of the South Island, and then I went to the University of Canterbury in Christchurch to do my master's degree, and then I headed overseas to do a PhD in England, so I was an international student there, the University of Sheffield.
So were you involved in many clubs or anything like that?
Yeah, that was the great thing about Otago. So we had lots of clubs, and I was involved in theatre, a lot in theatre, and that was fantastic, you know, really good, and in sporting clubs and in a variety of other kind of, you know, sort of very obscure student clubs that you know, existed, I think, purely to attract funding for the drinking money that they could then expend it on. But that was great, and that was really what kind of saved the university experience for me, was being part of that broader community. Just, you know, sitting in classes, you know, was a very sort of isolating experience for someone who's coming from out of town.
Yeah.
But then the engagement with the student societies, I think, run by the Guild and various things, was just fantastic. And that really, I still keep in touch with people that I was in theatre groups and, you know, performance groups with at the University of Otago, and we had a 40-year reunion quite recently.
I think I definitely agree with that. I mean, when I started uni, I kind of did the whole coming to class, going home, and that was it.
Yeah.
And then you start to get involved in all of these clubs and societies and things on campus, and it really just broadens your entire perspective of everything that you can do here. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's how you develop that sense of identity and belonging. And before that, as you say, it was I found it very isolating and wondered what on earth I was doing there. But then it sort of built into something, and that feeling of engagement and identity is the thing that stays with you and connects you to the institution, I think.
It definitely does.
And gives you the confidence, I think, to when you go out from university into employment. I think you know, you feel like you're coming from a community and a solid base. So, really important.
And I guess because it means that you branch out and you meet people that aren't just in your course or your school.
Yeah, exactly.
You meet people from all kinds of faculties.
That's what really makes a university. It's not the lectures. It's not the, you know, the educational content in a way, because a lot of that can be delivered through other mechanisms. It's what we sort of deliver to students when they come onto campus, when they engage with us, that really makes the university, and will, I guess, make the university going forward. You know, when we think about sort of 10 to 15 years' time, what universities will be about, they'll be about this kind of, you know, they'll be about student engagement really, and bringing students, enabling students to engage with employers, with government, and with society more generally. That'll be the focus, as opposed to just places where students come to have someone deliver a lecture to them.
Yeah.
You know, that's gone really.
No, I think that definitely is changing. I mean, we register over 100 clubs each year through the Guild. It's fantastic to see so many students wanting to meet other people and get involved and be engaged and just have a good time while they're here as well.
Hockey players suffer injuries like most sports people, but there are certain players who get injuries worse than most. So our Curtin team have set out to help them.
As we're underway in this third international.
So the research projects I'm working on with Hockey Australia is to look at the injury rates in drag flickers. The reason for drag flicking is that in the penalty corner, they're not allowed to hit because it can be dangerous to other players.
And another penalty corner.
So they must drag the ball first and then flick it.
There's a nice shot from Bone, but well saved by Lee Dong Chow.
I'm a qualified physiotherapist. I've treated a few drag flickers, and when they demonstrated to me the movement, I said to myself, well, that's a lot of power going through the legs and back, a lot of twisting, and it might lead to injuries. So what I did was to do a survey on about 400 to 500 hockey players, and I compared the difference in injury rates between those that are drag flickers and those that are not. We found that drag flickers are more likely to have injuries in the hip and the back as compared to the non-drag flickers. We were very lucky. We had 8 Masters of Sports and Masters of Manipulative Therapy students. So these are qualified physios that are studying postgrads to help us collect data. So we were able to collect data in the international team, so Hockey Australia. Then we also had the national squads, and we were also able to go to local clubs, and they were helpful in completing the surveys. And we also went to national tournaments to collect more surveys. So all up, I think we took about 400 to 450 surveys.
When you're ready, go.
We also asked a few drag flickers to go to our motion analysis laboratory. What we did was ask some of the drag flickers, put some markers on their body, and did a drag flick in the motion analysis laboratory, and we wanted to look at the forces and the movement that's going on in their legs and also their back to see if we can find out potentially what might cause the injuries in drag flickers. And hopefully, as a physiotherapist, my main aim is maybe we can actually reduce some of the injuries.
And they get a result. 1-1.
That's it for this episode of Inside Curtin. If you'd like to find out more about anything you've seen, you can visit the Learning for Tomorrow website at curtin.edu.au. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.